Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the...
Our only home, Mother Earth, is getting hotter because how most of us human beings have lived, especially the past 70 years. For thousands of years, the climate has never changed this fast. How most of us have lived has heated the atmosphere, the ocean, the land, fast changes all over the earth. The last 7 years have been the hottest years on record. Less snowpacks in the mountains of New Mexico and other southwest U.S. states. Faster runoff, making forests extremely dry. If the Earth's temperature rises 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit in the next 20 years, expect more crazy, dangerous hurricanes, thunderstorms, more floods, more tornadoes, more rising oceans because of the melting icebergs and melting glaciers, more hellish forest fires, and forest fires coming earlier in the season. Thousands of climate scientists worldwide have studied this awful climate crisis for years. They know far more details about the climate crisis than I will ever know. Do most of them make huge changes in how they live because of what they know? Do most of these educated climate scientists live much different than their neighbors who say there is no climate crisis? Do most of these educated climate scientists live much different than their neighbors who say human beings have not caused the climate crisis? How much good is it to study the climate crisis and memorize facts and figures, go to conferences on the climate crisis, if many of those who know the most refuse to make huge changes in how they live? But no matter how the climate scientists live, no matter how my friends and my neighbors live, I am responsible for how I live, how and how much I travel, the size of home I live in, the amount of water and electricity I use, what I buy, what I waste, what I eat. Regardless of what the climate scientists do or my friends and neighbors do, I am responsible for how I live. I'm responsible for my example to other people. I'm deeply indebted to many, many, many people who have opened my eyes and who have inspired me. With much help, we can change our lives for the better. I enjoy living in one sunny room, 9.5 by 12 feet. I've lived there for over 12 years. I have not traveled outside New Mexico for 28 years. I've ridden in no car for 21 years. I've owned no car for 42 years. I would not keep any car if given to me free and if you paid me to drive it. I enjoy riding city buses and mostly walking, healthier for my body and for our very sick Mother Earth. I eat no meat, no dairy, raising cattle, hogs, chickens for people to eat meat and dairy is one huge cause of the climate crisis. I enjoy eating only raw plant foods plus raw bee pollen and honey. I enjoy living below the U.S. poverty level for me as a single person. We can wake up. We can make huge, good changes. All of life on planet Earth is in crisis. Our environment needs intensive care now. The two worst dangers for all life on Earth are the climate crisis and nuclear war. Tom Grissom was a white man who grew up in the state of Mississippi. Born in 1940, Tom became very aware of the evil horrors of white supremacy against black people during slavery and ever since. Tom rejected superstition and religion. Tom was an atheist. And for 15 years, 1970 to 1985, Tom worked at Sandia Weapons Labs in Albuquerque. 15 years. Tom worked designing nuclear weapons of mass murder. But in 1985, Tom woke up. Tom realized how evil, absolutely evil, his work was on nuclear weapons. And he abruptly resigned. Tom got out of the mass murder business. And then for 22 years, he enjoyed teaching at Evergreen State College in the state of Washington. Tom died last October at age 81. I strongly compliment Tom for making a huge, good change when he quit his damn 15-year job at Sandia Weapons Lab. And I wish all the scientists there developing nuclear weapons of mass murder would follow Tom's example. Many years ago, a black preacher visited me here in Albuquerque. He was married to a woman, but he was desperate for sex with a man. I did not have sex with him. Most men, most white men, most black men, most brown men, I am not sexually attracted to. Some brown men, some black men, some white men, I am strongly sexually attracted to. If I remember right, I connected the black preacher to a close gay friend of mine, and they had sex. And one of the best kept secrets worldwide is the millions of bisexual and bi-curious men who love sex and romance with one or more women, but want sex also with certain men. I remember my very attractive dear friend Eric. Eric sold at the flea market here in Albuquerque, hot and sexy to the max, shirt-free, wearing a hard hat like men in the music group YMCA. Eric had sex with many women, many men. He had several children by different women. I wonder if he knew how many children he fathered. I understand his enjoyment of sex, but how much better if Eric had always used birth control with women, unless he was ready, able, and willing to be a good father to that child. Eric and I never had sex, and sadly, my dear friend Eric died some years ago from drugs. After my mother Lillian died in 1982, 40 years ago, my dad became in some ways the living person closest to me. My mother was my all-time closest friend. My dad became in some ways the living person closest to me after her death, in spite of our many differences, tensions, fights. My dad died 28 years ago in 1994. He was 81. My dad was a foster child. How did he find out that the mother and dad raising him were not his birth parents? A kid in school told him. And what a shock it must have been for my dad. If he was a baby in an orphanage, long before he could later remember, he probably starved for hugs. He probably starved for tender touch, which affected him most of his life. For many years, I think my dad wondered why his birth parents did not keep him, who they really were, if he had brothers and sisters whom he had never met. And many years later, I tried to find out these things, but no luck. My dad quit school after 8th grade, began working hard on farms. My dad did not go to high school, but he wanted me to have both high school and college. I got good grades in college, but I dropped out. I got bored. I prefer learning in the University of Life. Maybe as a foster child, my dad felt he had to work extra hard to show he was worth keeping. He was in his 20s during the Great Depression. He started his business buying and settling cattle and hogs in the 1940s. My brother, who is now 87 years old, and some of his family still run that family business in Illinois, the oldest cattle and hog market in the county there. And at his business, Dad was very much in charge, the boss. But in other places, he often was shy and quiet. My dad was a workaholic. My mother spent a lot of money buying small stuff no one needs. She later regretted buying so much stuff. My dad never learned to enjoy music and reading books. He was addicted to work. The marriage of him and my mother was miserable for both of them. At least once, when mother and dad were fighting, I was afraid he would kill her. I am so glad they were not boozers. I'm so glad no gun was in our house, ever. After my mother died, he dated my mother's sister, Susie, for 12 years until he died. Susie's husband had died years before, and Dad enjoyed going with Susie to many local places. He and my mother suffered emotional war much of their marriage, but it was much different dating Susie. They each had their own home. They each had their own money. They never got married. They never had sex. Susie was a strict Southern Baptist, but they enjoyed many times together. Susie was lean. She enjoyed dressing up. She never got fat. She never suffered the awful sicknesses like my mother suffered. My dad liked my mustache, but he did not like my long hair. He did not like my beard that I used to have back then. I often then wore dark or black clothes. He did not like me wearing those dark clothes because he thought those were for old people. As he would say, "You'll be old soon enough." Back then, I often went to bed late and I felt like shit the next day. I wish I could tell my dad and my mother now some of the big changes I have gone through since they died. Now I go to bed early and get up early. And then I very foolishly drove cars and trucks, sleepy, many times, risking my life, risking the lives of other people. It was absolutely foolish and wrong for me to drive sleepy. I stopped all driving many years ago. I've become an expert in saving money. I enjoy living simply below the U.S. poverty level. So much I wish I could tell both mother and dad. I apologize for keeping Dad awake with music and talking with friends visiting me there on the farm. He was afraid about my being arrested in protest demonstrations in Washington, D.C., New York City, Omaha, Nebraska. I aim to speak and to write and to live the truth, but now I aim not to get arrested in protest. I never drank much booze, but I have drunk no booze, not a damn drop at all, for many, many years. Booze is slow poison to every cell of the body. When I worked part-time in his business, he and I often rode together in his trucks to pick up cattle or hogs. And much of the time, no conversation between us as we rode together in those trucks. I wish Dad had asked me many questions about my life, about my feelings. I love personal questions. In 1986, when my boyfriend David from Michigan visited me on the farm, my dad took a photo of him and me. And years later, when David and I were no longer in touch, and I was feeling down that day, my dad encouraged me to phone David. And when Mother and Dad were living, I lived part-time with them on the farm in Illinois and part-time here in New Mexico. I had a taste of what many immigrants feel, having your heart torn between two homes hundreds of miles apart. One night there, after my mother had died, my dad and I had an especially awful argument. My bedroom was upstairs. He slept downstairs. I felt that night I could no longer cope living there with him. But the next morning, on his own, he came to the stairway door and he apologized to me. His apology helped me greatly. And when I was here in New Mexico, I wrote him many letters. And I was so glad to find that he had saved those letters together in a drawer. My dad suffered asthma for over 40 years, and if you or your family have suffered asthma, you know it can be hell, like drowning on dry land. He often had to sit up to sleep. He suffered heart trouble 15 years. He suffered many headaches, so many headaches. But he faithfully mailed me manila envelopes over 200 times when I was here in New Mexico, sending me my mail that came there, sending articles from his newspaper, and a check. My dad suffered a colostomy, a hole in his side for his shit to come out in a bag he wore. Colostomies are awful. Colostomies are hell. My granny, my mother's mother, had a colostomy for a year and a half until she died. Fortunately, Dad did not have cancer, so his intestine was connected again after a year. He was in hospitals many times. My Aunt Susie loved me, but sadly, she never fully accepted my being gay. Dad felt much pressure from my Aunt Susie, much pressure from my very religious brother against my being gay. He was in the middle. My dad had never known any openly gay person before me. And once when I was working at his business, a young, very good-looking, shirt-free farmer came. And after this man left, I told my dad I would love to fuck with him. My dad said, "You better not let your brother hear that." I think I told my dad that day, sometimes the person who seems strong against gays is fighting their own gay feelings inside. And often when I was living there, when I would leave the house in the evenings to go someplace, I would kiss my dad as he sat stiff like a statue in his chair. January 8th, 1994, just weeks before he died, when I left that day to come back to Albuquerque, not knowing he was that close to death, I told Dad to initiate kissing me when my nephew David, my brother's second son, there I got it, came to pick me up and to drive me to town to catch the bus. I wanted David to see my dad, his grandfather, making the first move to kiss me. I wonder if David remembers that. And yes, Dad made the first move to kiss me that last day, those last minutes I ever saw him alive. Dad's last long trip, he flew here to Albuquerque to visit me some years before he died. When I was there, many of my friends visited me on the farm and met my dad. My dear friend Daniel from Martinez Town in Albuquerque, my dear friend Raul and his wife Dora from Chicago, and many, many more. Dad was concerned for my safety, and often he went in with the huge, dangerous hogs that could weigh 400, 500 or more pounds in the truck. Some of them still had their tusks, these very long teeth that could rip open each other or a human being. He told me to stand outside the truck's back door. He wanted me to be safe. Dad wanted to be on time, not late. I want to be on time. He wanted to fix right away something broken. He liked to get his mail at the small village post office, and I look forward to getting my mail. He liked Western shirts with snaps, and when I wear shirts, I like Western shirts with snaps. Dad complimented me many times, many times on work I did on the farm and in his business. Dad, like many men found it easier to talk about his asthma than his buried fears and feelings. Easier to talk about his headaches and his chest pains than his heartaches. Dad found it easier to talk about his broken bones than our broken family. And during his last almost 6 years before he died, after I had returned in 1988 to live in Albuquerque, he and I phoned each other hundreds of times. Once, after I published a letter in the newspaper back there against eating meat, an upset farmer spoke to my dad. And when Dad told me about this upset farmer, I said to my dad, if that happens again, tell the person my mother taught me to stand up for what I believe. If I live to be 81, the age he was when he died, I hope I work as hard in my work as he still did in his work. And when Dad was in the hospital his last December, before I left for Albuquerque on January 8th, he asked me to trim his toenails there in the hospital, and I did. He told me to bring his corn popper from home to the hospital. He popped corn. He feasted. And as he lay in agony the day before he died, Dad told my Aunt Susie, now I know what Lillian, his deceased wife, my mother, I know what Lillian went through. When we're up and doing things, going places, we do not know what it's like to suffer like this. I, Don Schrader, am deeply indebted to both my mother and my dad in many, many ways. We all began as drinking our piss when we were inside our mothers. I never learned that in school. Did you? The womb's amniotic fluid surrounding the baby is largely the baby's piss. And people who say drinking piss is gross and they could never do such a thing, well, they drank their piss long before they drank formula or breast milk or water. Our piss is filtered blood. As our blood circulates in our bodies, a healthy liver, and of course, sadly, many people's livers are not healthy because of booze or junk food or working with chemicals on the job. But a healthy liver removes poisons which go into our intestines and get shit out. And then the cleaner blood goes to the kidneys. Our kidneys balance the body's good elements. Well, I should say the blood's good elements, and remove any surplus good elements not needed at that moment. When leaves fall from trees, the leaves are not waste. The leaves are not poison to trees. Trees grow well when they feed on their fallen leaves. Piss is not waste. Piss is not poison to our bodies. Our piss is our fountain of life, our unique, perfect, living medicine containing hundreds of vitamins, hormones, including sex hormone, minerals, and enzymes. Drinking our piss purifies our blood. Drinking our piss kills bad germs. Drinking our piss provides nutrients. Drinking our piss signals our body how to heal and balance our whole system precisely. Drinking our piss is the best medicine for kidney problems. My mother died of kidney disease, and I wish I had known back then, when she was alive, how drinking our piss is the best medicine for kidney problems. Drinking our piss, massaging our body with piss, is the most effective and safest natural healer, and it's free. The drug companies can't make a damn penny on my drinking my piss, even though drug companies for many years have researched the ingredients of piss in order to make drugs that they can make a huge profit on for sterility, for treating cancer, heart disease. So is it any wonder that the drug companies do not publicize the benefits of drinking fresh piss? Drinking piss and massaging the body with piss have helped or healed cancer, diabetes, hepatitis, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, allergies. Drinking piss and massaging the body with piss have helped or healed herpes, hyperactivity, tuberculosis, depression, heart problems, schizophrenia. I remember many years ago when a woman healer from Mexico was here in Albuquerque, and through an interpreter, I asked her about the benefits of drinking piss, and she said she had healed a man of schizophrenia through urine therapy, drinking piss. Drinking piss and massaging the body with piss can help or heal almost all physical and emotional illnesses. It's a powerful natural tranquilizer instead of expensive pharmacy drugs that have bad side effects. Our first morning piss is highest in hormones. Piss is great for open wounds. Piss is usually more sterile than the distilled water. So isn't it kind of funny how men, and I suppose women too, after they piss, feel they have to wash their hands? Piss is usually more sterile than distilled water. For best results in drinking piss, drink no booze, no coffee, eat no meat, no dairy, no junk food, no cooked food for best results. Now, even if you do some of those things, you'll get some results. But if you want the best results, smoke no cigarettes, use no table salt, take no drugs of any kind, legal or street. And all people who take pharmacy or street drugs should start off with a few drops of piss by mouth, or use piss for massage and compresses. Why? To avoid overdosing, because some of the drugs are in that piss. The more piss we drink, the more our body detoxifies, and the faster our healing. And it's kind of like, you know, if there's a room that no one has gone into for years, many years, it has just stood empty, and then you go in and you want to clean that room. For a while, when you're cleaning and sweeping the dust and so on, it actually looks dirtier than it did before you started. And that's the way it is when we make huge changes in what we eat, how we live, and when we drink our piss. That for a while, sometimes days, weeks, months, depending how severely severe harm you did to your body and how long, for a while, you may feel worse, even much worse than you did before you started making changes. But don't give up, because eventually you will be feeling much better. In severe cases, eating no food, drinking all our piss, and purified water can work best. The healthier we are, the healthier what we eat, the better our piss tastes. And that is absolutely true. And for at least 9,000 years in Mexico, 5,000 years in India, and for centuries in many other places, millions of people have drunk their piss for health. Writers from England, France, Germany, India, Israel, the Philippines, the Netherlands, and the United States have praised drinking piss to get healthy and to stay healthy. I strongly recommend these 3 books: The Water of Life by John W. Armstrong of England, Urine Therapy, Nature's Elixir for Good Health by Flora Peschik-Bomar, PhD, and Gisela Schreiber of Germany, and my favorite, The Golden Fountain, The Complete Guide to Urine Therapy by Cohen van der Kroon from the Netherlands. Piss often in a clear glass or clear plastic cup to check your piss for color. Aim for light yellow. If your piss is dark, drink more water. And just after a meal, piss may be rather dark because of the B vitamins in the food you ate. Most of the time, aim for light yellow. Dark piss, not soon after meals, can show dehydration. You got to drink more water. I have drunk my piss every day, since November 10th, 1999, 22 and a half years. Usually 2 cups early in the mornings, as I exercise, at home, after I get up. Drink only fresh piss. Only fresh piss, as I'm doing at this moment. And yes, it tastes good. Never, 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 never drink aged piss. The urea, U-R-E-A, changes after some days to ammonia. And that's why it has such a strong smell then. Aged piss is good for massaging the body on the skin and then rinsing it off later with water. Aged piss is good for washing clothes. I use it. People in Germany and Rome used aged piss to wash their clothes. Both fresh piss and aged piss are good for fertilizing gardens and trees, and I use my piss on my garden and on trees. And be sure to put it on directly on the soil, not on the leaves. And for young plants, very young plants, dilute 1 part piss with 10 or more parts of water. I enjoy being strongly attracted sexually to certain men, much more to a man's body than his cock and his face. And there's much more to a man than his body. My attraction for him never guarantees his attraction for me. I aim to be friends with any man, any woman who sincerely wants my friendship. But I aim to flirt only with men I'm sexually attracted to. I aim to flirt only with men I'm quite sure will not get mean and crazy, even if I find out they are not sexually attracted to me or to any man. I aim to respect his right to say no. I do not want to be a pest to any man, no matter how attracted I am to him. I aim not to beg, not to chase, not to pout if his answer is no. I would treasure hot sex and passionate romance with certain men, but I will not for any man on earth change my refusal to pay federal income tax for war and for nuclear weapons. I will not for any man on earth change from living simply. I would treasure hot sex and passionate romance with certain men, but I will not change my owning no car. I will not change my eating only healthy raw foods. I will not change my naked body freedom. I will not change my drinking no booze. I will not change my drinking my piss to be healthy for any man on earth, no matter how strongly I'm attracted to him. My favorite contact sport is affectionate hot sex and cuddling, naked, sober, with men I'm attracted to and who are attracted to me. Why is a photo of 2 men boxers painfully beating each other, bruising each other, brain injuring each other, considered okay in the sports section of newspapers across this country. But a photo of two men passionately pleasuring each other in affectionate sex, fucking, sucking, cuddling, would be absolutely forbidden as obscene in those newspapers. Imagine a world, a sane world, where violence between men has no fans, zero fans, and where passionate sex and romance between men or between women or between a man and a woman are celebrated by all people, both men and women. Eat lots of raw, dark, leafy greens, colitas, kale, collards, parsley, alfalfa, red clover. Eat them in a salad if you have good teeth, which I don't, or in a blended smoothie. That's how I eat them, with apples or other fruit. Raw, dark, leafy greens remove poisons from our liver, rejuvenate our liver. Raw, dark, leafy greens fight bad germs, benefit our intestines' good germs that we have to live. Raw, dark, leafy greens are high in protein for strength and body building. Raw, leafy greens help constipation by stimulating the intestines, help arthritis, and reduce pain. Raw, leafy, dark greens help sore throat, stomach ulcers, all skin infections, help our vision and treat diabetes, reduce high blood pressure, relieve nervousness, prevent cancer, give us better sleep. Raw, dark, leafy greens make our bodies more flexible, strengthen our hearts, build blood, and benefit anemia, improve varicose veins, are high in vitamin C, oxygen, calcium, potassium, magnesium, beta-carotene for vitamin A. I need, I want, I love friends, close friends, warm, strong hugs, heart-to-heart conversations. The more deep and real and personal the conversations, the better. I need, I want, I love visits from friends at my home. I enjoy going to El Super grocery store, the largest Mexican grocery store in Albuquerque, to buy apples and avocados and persimmons and other fruit. I enjoy going to the flea market, often Saturdays and Sundays, at the fairgrounds on Central, and to the rail yards market and the downtown growers market during the summer and fall for New Mexico grown organic fruit. I enjoy going to Old Town, watching people, hearing music, and dancing for hours at the fiesta, the first full weekend of June. I enjoy living alone in my one sunny room, 9.5 by 12 feet, in the house of a friend. 6 windows, lots of sunlight. The poem War Fever by Peace Pilgrim, whom I knew, that terrible blindness which makes your enemy appear like a devil and makes you look like a devil to him. War fever. That awful insanity which makes the same act brilliant strategy for you and foul treachery for the enemy. War fever. That frightful drunkenness which muddles the mind until wrong seems like right. Hate appears good. Murder seems okay. War fever, that horrible sickness for which no cure is sought, but instead ways are sought to spread the disease. War fever. Why are many men ashamed to strongly hug their teenage sons, their adult sons? Why are many men afraid to open their hearts deeply to even their closest men friends? Why do many men prefer to talk about sports or cars or neighbors? Mostly shallow crap. Why are many men afraid to dance with a woman or a man unless they're drinking booze? Why are many men ashamed to admit to their close men friends they no longer have good hard-ons? Why are many men afraid to talk about their death and dying? Fresh piss to your health. Good night.
Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and